afternoon, everybody. So, this is my first whisper video, and I haven't come up with a clever whisper name for myself like most of you have yet, but I suppose I'll come up with something by the time I post this. I have spent the past couple of months or so listening to the videos that are already on YouTube, and really enjoying the contributions to the community by all of the great whisperers out there. I have never really been the kind of person who puts himself out there publicly. I don't really use social networking sites. I have never blogged. I've never even really kept a journal. But there's something really about the generosity and intimacy of some of these whisper videos, and the warmth and good humor and fellowship that the community seems to have here on YouTube that compelled me to create some of my own. I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to be able to fill a given niche here on YouTube, but we'll see. For now, I'm just doing it because it seems like a fun thing to do. And, yeah, that's that. So, I am a bit of a bookworm in my personal life. There's a great line in that movie Wonder Boys where Michael Douglas's character talks about Frances McDormand's character, and he says that she loves him because she is an addict of the printed word, and Michael Douglas's character produces her drug of choice. And that's kind of how I feel about literature. And I also recently have very much gotten into poetry. When I was a kid and when I was a teenager, poetry was always one of those things where I had to read it as part of school, but I never really enjoyed it. And I think something has happened really since I've grown up, since I've become an adult, that the experience of poets and of poetry has started to resonate in a way that it really can't when you don't have life experience. In a lot of ways, poetry is much more emotional than anything that can be written in a novel or a long-form piece of literature. By virtue of its compression and its economy of language, much needs to be conveyed in a very short space, and that can lead to very intimate, very touching, very explosively emotional passages. And at this point in my life, I really connect with it. So for my first video, I thought I would read a couple of my favorite poems. And the first is a poem by Matthew Arnold, who is a British poet. And he writes with lots of very beautiful imagery. And my favorite poem of his is called The Buried Life. And the reason I love it is because it is a really atypical love poem. It is a poem that Arnold wrote for someone with whom he was very deeply in love, but in it he also recognizes that regardless of the love and intimacy and connection that two people share, one person can never truly know the mind and the heart of another. Essentially, when we love, we are taking a leap of faith and we're acting on trust. And we can come very close to knowing that person. We can know what they tell us. We can observe their behavior. We can know for certain how they make us feel when we're in their presence. But regardless of that closeness, we can never actually completely know another person. And I think Arnold does a really great job of conveying how simultaneously beautiful and heartbreaking this notion is. So if you'll bear with me, this is The Buried Life by Matthew Arnold. Light flows our war of mocking words, and yet, behold, with tears my eyes are wet. I feel a nameless sadness o'er me roll. Yes, yes, we know that we can jest. We know that we can smile. But there's a something in this breast to which the light words bring no rest, and thy gay smiles no anodyne. Give me thy hand, and hush a while, and turn those those limpid eyes on mine, and let me read their love, thy inmost soul. Alas, is even love too weak to unlock the heart and let it speak? Are even lovers powerless to reveal to one another what indeed they feel? I know the mass of men concealed their thoughts, for fear that if revealed they would by other men be met with blank indifference, or with blame reproved. I knew they lived and moved, tricked in disguises, alien to the rest of men, and alien to themselves. And yet, the same heart beats in every human breast. But we, my love, doth a like spell benumb our hearts, our voices? Must we too be numb? Ah, well for us, if even we, even for a moment, can get free our heart and have our lips unchained, for that which sealed them hath been deep ordained. Fate, which foresaw how frivolous a baby man would be, by what distractions he would be possessed, how he would pour himself in every strife and well nigh change his own identity, that it might keep from his capricious play his genuine self, and force him to obey even his own despite his being's law, bade through the deep recesses of our breast, the unregarded river of our life pursue with indiscernible flow its way, and that we should not see the buried stream, and seem to be eddying at large in blind uncertainty, though driving on with it eternally. But often, in the world's most crowded streets, but often, in the din of strife, there rises an unspeakable desire, and the knowledge of our buried life, a thirst to spend our fire and restless force in tracking out our true, original course, a longing to inquire into the mystery of this heart which beats so wild, so deep in us, to know whence our lives come and where they go. And many a man in his own breast then delves, but deep enough, alas, none ever minds. And we have been on many thousand lines, and we have shown on each spirit and power, but hardly have we for one little hour been on our own line. Have we been ourselves? Hardly had no skill to utter one of all, the nameless feelings that course through our breast. But they course on, forever unexpressed, and long we try in vain to speak and act our hidden self. And what we say and do is eloquent, is well, but 'tis not true. And then we will no more be racked with inward striving, and demand of all the thousand nothings of the hour their stupefying power. And yes, and they benumb us at our call. Yet still, from time to time, vague and forlorn, from the soul's subterranean death upborn as from an infinitely distant land, comes airs and floating echoes, and convey a melancholy into all our day. Only, but this is rare, when a beloved hand is laid in ours, when, jaded with the rush and glare of the interminable hours, our eyes can in another's eyes read clear, when our world-deafened ear is by the tones of a loved voice caressed, a bolt is shot back somewhere in our breast, and a lost pulse of feeling stirs again. The eye sinks inward, and the heart lies plain. And what we mean we say, and what we would we know. A man becomes aware of his life's flow, and hears its winding murmur. And he sees the meadows where it glides, the sun, the breeze. And there arrives a lull in the hot race, wherein he doth for every chase that flying and elusive shadow rest. An air of coolness plays upon his own face, and an unwonted calm pervades his breast. And then he thinks he knows the hills where his life rose, and the sea where it goes. richness of meaning in his words, and whenever I read them, I feel as though I get something new out of them each time. I guess that's a bit cliche to say about a piece of literature, but that's always been my experience, that really good works encourage and actually require rereading. And I think one of the admonishments that really strikes me in that poem is the importance of each of us striving to know ourselves, take control of those parts of our lives that we can't control, live fully, know who we are, essentially know what makes us tick. So many of us move through our lives without mindfulness, and Arnold encourages us to resist that temptation to essentially be spiritually and emotionally lazy. I also love the way there seems to be an affirmation of man's ability to know himself at the end, but he ends the poem on a note of ambiguity. He doesn't say that this he of the subject knows that he's found new knowledge. He ends by saying, and then he thinks he knows the hills where his life rose, and the sea where it goes. So there's this idea there that just as we can't truly know someone with whom we're in love, how well can we actually know ourselves? Even when the answers seem plain to us, there is still mystery, there's still ambiguity. And while some people may read this poem as a bit of a downer, I see that as something very beautiful, a real sense of encouragement. And I just love that poem. So I hope you enjoyed this first whisper of mine, and I will be back again with some Walt Whitman next.